Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Anime Night in the Dojo. Today's featured show, Campfire Cooking in Another World with My Absurd Skill, Season 2.
Yep, Campfire Cooking, Season 2, Episode 3. Welcome back to the dojo. I'm Ryu. That's Age. We're back from our Anime Night in the dojo, and you guys can't see it right now, but the first frame of this episode, Elrond's dead on a desk. So it's over for him. He did re-research because, you know, everything he thought he knew got called into question by Dora last week, and, well, when your whole worldview is shattered, you got to go back to the office, basically. So that was what it was. We got the other two gods. Hephaestus, most people probably know him or her if you're a Don Machi fan. And then I don't remember the name of the god of war. It's not Kratos, so I don't care.
Yeah, I don't remember him. He was one of the ones we didn't.
It was a very unique name, so it was probably a god from like a lesser known pantheon, you know, somewhere maybe like a
Yeah, not all of them are necessarily gods. Like Agni is actually a fire demon in Hindi.
Yeah.
And like Ninrir, while her name is very similar to like the Nord, it's still a original name.
Yeah. Like, so this war god could be original. You know what I mean? We don't know. We'd have to look up the name again. That's something we didn't check last week. But either way, the Earth Dragon stuff continues. Sui now has made the Mithril Knife Plus because everybody got a new blessing, because Makoto is collecting more blessings than familiars at this point. So are we sure that, you know, we shouldn't rename the series? But either way, Sui is now a crafting powerhouse, and they will continue to be as such. So it will be pretty interesting to see what comes of that, like what kind of cool stuff Sui will be able to make in the future for them, and how much money it's going to make, because Makoto already has an absurd amount of money, and it's just going to get worse, you know, through no fault of his own. So where can I sign up for that RNG? But either way, we're gonna get going here, see what happens with the Earth Dragon, assuming I can't imagine that Sui's Mithril Knife Plus won't be good enough to get through the scale, so Elrond can do his thing, and that'll probably pull him out of his funk of being, you know, dead on this desk. So people on Patreon will see you on the other side of the edit for the timer reaction, and people on YouTube, we will see you on the other side for the discussion and review. So we're gonna push some buttons and get going here. So here goes some. Well, alrighty then. You guys, Makoto has made another fairly large purchase, and a couple other small ones because he bought those steaming pot things. I forgot what they were called. They have a term.
Stock pot.
Yeah, the stock pots, jeez. So he bought a bunch of those, which probably didn't cost as much because he bought those from the online grocery. We were talking about that during the reaction. The online grocery, once again, is a grocery, not like a warehouse store where you can go buy like big pieces of equipment like this stove here. So he had to settle for the smaller stock pots. But
Yeah, like up to this point, he's just been using a little freaking camper stove.
yeah, so
Which, like he brought up, he needed to keep buying fuel for. Meanwhile, this runs off of magic, so
yeah.
he cut expenses and gave himself more options to, you know, cook more things simultaneously. Plus, he actually has an oven now, not just a stove.
Yep. So that brings up more options for cooking related stuff. Obviously, the first thing he did was roast the dragon, which is not something you can do on stovetop. So we got that. 870 gold. A massive purchase, but once again, we're talking about an economy where luxuries actually cost a lot of money, and this was the newest model. So
Yeah, no, like freaking from what we know of like general living expenses, buying this stove would be like close to like 100 years worth of living expenses.
yeah, it's pretty insane. But you know, it's one of those things where, again, we talk about how like just the average everyday stuff, like they even like when he was talking to the like random stall merchant where he bought all the vegetables and stuff, like the meat is, stuff that's harder to acquire costs more. Because once again, that was another thing that Fel mentioned was they don't do cattle. They don't do chicken farming or cow farming. You know what I mean? They don't breed animals for the exact purpose of like butchering them and using them for food. Because in the case of like say the town he's in right now, they just go into the dungeon and get monster meat and then use that. But because it's not a farming method, it costs way more because they're literally risking their lives to get said meat.
Yeah, animal husbandry in general just does not seem to be a thing here. Like, we don't even really see people running around with horses or anything like that.
Yep.
Like, they just rely entirely on just hunting monsters because they're everywhere.
Yeah. And especially with the dungeon in this town, the first guild lady was saying that no dungeon run is the same. So it probably works like the dungeon in Aurario in a way, where it replenishes monsters, but also it's like a roguelike dungeon that shifts every time you go in.
Well, yeah, like, we had the one small dungeon in Season 1, and, like, Fel was kind of explaining it to where, like, the dungeons themselves are essentially living beings that constantly shift and try to, like, keep people from conquering them.
Yep.
And they generate the monsters as kind of like an immuno response to keep invaders out.
Yep. So it'll be interesting to see like when they finally go in there, like what the deal is with that. But again, just from like the economic standpoint of like buying stuff, obviously they have, things like vegetables and stuff like that will be cheaper and whatnot. And obviously he doesn't want to buy everything from the online grocery because then it's going to be like, I've never seen this guy buy food. You know what I mean? Where does he keep getting this stuff? But
well, yeah, but it is, and also it is, comparing, grocery delivered stuff to actually like fresh grown things.
Yeah.
Which, like you said, like packaged spices and sauces and stuff like that are good because it'd be very hard to actually figure out how to recreate them in this world when they don't have all of the processing methods, or like he found out, even though they do have some of the same plants and stuff like that, they're called different things.
Right. We got to make the friggin' Peacemaker joke from the last season of Peacemaker. For those of you who didn't see it, Cheerios was spelled with an O-H at the end.
Yeah.
So, they also had Scrabble as opposed to Scrabble.
Yeah, and Cheetos with an H on the end is just all around worse.
Yep. So, real bummer. But it seems like the vegetables in this world are comparable and they're fine. So, either way, the economic stuff aside,
one random minor thing I will gripe on, the carrots were orange. Carrots aren't naturally orange. We bred them over freaking centuries to be orange because orange is a more appealing color to eat.
Yeah. So,
but meanwhile, it's possible that once again they did the same thing here,
or they just come out that way here. Who knows?
Seeing as once again this is like a medieval fantasy style world, they shouldn't be orange yet.
Right. Just random bits of trivia there for you guys. But who knows? It could be magic or nanites. But yeah, I mean, it's probably one of those things where a lot of people would probably like question it. You know what I mean? If you got like that technically specific, it's like, what the heck is that thing? And then somebody would have to explain it. But Makoto could explain it. It's like, well, back in the day before selective breeding, carrots looked like this. So it could just be like a one-off piece of trivia. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Either way, I think it is great that they did something to the effect of like them like, hey, we know your bank account. Stop being a nerd and spend money. You know how you absolve carrying around a lot of money? Spend it on stuff.
It's a kind of a combination thing of like he's stingy to begin with, but then he also doesn't want to go start throwing money around because he doesn't want to be known to be someone who is extremely wealthy.
Yeah, so it's like that double-edged sword. He's very frugal. He has the ton of money. He obviously will have a massive use for this thing. Obviously, he's not against buying things that he knows are going to be useful and or like he wants, like with like the bathtub or whatever. The other thing that I guess he could do is, space out his purchases and buy them in different towns. That's the best way to do it. You know what I mean? You're just not going to go to the local whatever, like Costco or something, or pick your favorite, like whatever you're going to buy and just drop like, well, I'm going to drop 50 grand here. People are going to raise some eyebrows. You know what I mean? Go buy the TV there, go buy that there, go buy that thing there, go buy that there. Is that a bigger ass pain? Yeah. But, makes it far less, conspicuous. So, it's just one of those things. But something else we also talked about during the reaction, too, was, you take a look at this stove right here. Even if it's, like, lightweight metal, it's still going to weigh several hundred pounds. Okay?
Yeah, like that kind of olden stove like that where everything is metal. Unless, like, some of the magic on it is making it lighter, freaking that thing, you're looking at probably at minimum 300 pounds, probably closer to, like, 5 or 6.
Yeah. So, I think that's one of the things that hasn't really been addressed, but as he's leveling up, which you will level up more in the dungeon, obviously, his base stats have gone up. So, at a certain point, when you hit a strength quota, this kind of thing won't, like, really matter to you. And it probably doesn't matter for a lot of the people in this world just because of, like, the strength factor. So the strength factor in this world is probably, kind of weird when it comes to lifting stuff. It's kind of a weird thing to think about because, even if he's, like, putting it into the item box and, like, once he's, like, he already did it with, like, a lot of those, like, big-time creatures, like the Orc Generals and the Chimeras and stuff like that. He had to pull them into the item box. So it's not like the item box is like a vortex that's like helping him push it in. You know what I mean? So his strength has to be reasonable to drag these creatures that weigh several hundred pounds as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like freaking just a normal bull is freaking heavy as hell, and the freaking ones that they killed were like 50% to double the size of a normal bull.
Yeah. So that's just kind of another interesting thing to think about for his stat line and stuff like that, like what he's capable of doing from a physical standpoint. Because, even with like the blessings and stuff like that, they obviously have an effect on him, just like baseline stat wise. It's just kind of like he's just carrying around this thing like it's nothing. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like an interesting thing to think about. It's like, man, I wish I could carry around a stove like that, but like it was nothing. That'd be awesome. Rearrange my kitchen every day. Not that I'd want to do that, but you could pick up your stove like it was nothing and move it.
Yeah, and then like the thing I was commenting on was like that giant ass platter with that huge ass slab of dragon meat. Like, even if that was just a relatively lightweight meat, that'd still be pretty heavy. But something like hyper dense and muscular, like freaking like a dragon, that thing probably weighed at least 100 to 200 pounds.
Yeah, so it's just kind of one of those interesting things to think about in a show like this. Obviously, it does not need to be addressed. It really doesn't matter. But it's just kind of like one of those like background things that you think about that just, how about that? So that's always kind of an interesting thing to think about. But either way, we had Elrond buying not a lot of the dragon, which, again, it seems like the guilds only have so much money. Like we saw the guild that was run by the guy who voices All Might in the previous season. It's like, yeah, we've never paid out this much, but we can't pay out anymore because we don't have any more money, kind of deal.
Yeah, it seems like the average budget for the guilds is like they keep about 5K on hand. and then they can get more pretty easily because they make a lot of money, and most of them seem to be government funded. But that's like all they actually keep at the guild at any given time.
Because keep in mind, they're not paying this out to every adventurer. Not every adventurer is making hundreds of gold. You know what I mean? It's like, oh man, I did a quest for like 30 gold, or maybe not even that. You know, like the super low ranking quest, like, you know, he started with the like what was it, like the herb picking thing and whatnot. Like,
well,
what did he make? Like 4 gold off of that or something like that. You know what I mean? So
he overdid it on the quest and made, I think, something like 30 gold in total.
Yeah.
And yeah, he brought back like 4 or 5 times what the quest required.
Yeah. So you got to figure just people just knocking out the quests on average. You know, if you have like 50, 60 adventurers doing stuff, that's going to equate to a couple hundred gold. You know what I mean? Not, oh man, we got to pay out thousands of gold every day. You know what I mean? Especially with their rules of like only having to complete a quest once a month, that kind of thing. And with the daily living expenses, you know, you could go do like that herb quest, you know, a couple times a month and you'd be good if you're just like the average person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you're just living a relatively average life, friggin', you would basically just be doing the herb quests the once a month just to maintain your membership. Like, you'd still be making more and be able to actually like start saving up to buy luxuries if you were just going out and collecting the herbs every so often.
Right.
Which, admittedly, while that herb quest was a low-level quest, those herbs were supposed to be fairly rare. The only reason why Makoto was able to overdo it so much is because he has the appraise skill.
Yeah, so he could literally see where everything was. So, literal video game character powers there that you had. But either way,
it's a lot easier to find rare materials when you have a visible freaking HUD tracker for them.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So that obviously helps. So yes, we have the dungeon being set up, which should be a thing. I wanted to make a Power Rangers joke based on the look of this dungeon. It looks like the OG, like you know, where like Zordon, like that building that they had in freaking LA for that. It looked very, very similar to that building. So I missed a Power Rangers or Zordon joke in the middle of that. That's real bummer. But everything we learned about the dungeon is procedurally generated, kind of like a roguelike dungeon. Monsters continually respawn in it, and it has 30 levels, and no one has ever beaten it before. That is the key thing here.
Yeah, it has at least 30 levels. Once again, no one's ever actually beaten it.
Yeah. So, I think they're gonna beat the dungeon.
Yeah,
2
probably.
reasons why. The majority of the reason, Belle is insane. Dora is also another legendary creature. Sui's coming into their own. We don't know what the dragon food buff has done yet on top of the God of War's blessing. So, are they just going to drive through the dungeon like Ryuji and P5 and just RKO stuff from the side of the car? Because that's what it's probably going to be like. Or, you know, like the last season Spy Family, where Yor was like cutting down people and the freaking guy behind her was sweeping them up. Is that what that's going to be? Because that's what it feels like.
You just get Mikael going through one-shotting everything, and Makoto just trying to sprint to keep up behind him with the freaking item box open.
Yeah, pretty much. You better teach Sui how to become a human vacuum, or a slime vacuum that just inserts stuff straight into the freaking item box. It's gonna have to keep the item box open on the fly, just like a big burlap sack. You know what I mean? Just hold it open the whole time. It's because you can't tell me that's not what's probably gonna happen. Okay? Because you know, I'd assume there have been some like S rank adventurers that have come here and done like this dungeon and stuff like that. Maybe like Elrond's tested it in the past, that kind of thing. But yeah. You know, it's probably never been like a major thing, kind of like the dungeon in Aurario, where you have like the low-key familia that have like tried to push You know what I mean? Like we need to see what's at the bottom. That's like what we do. That's our gimmick. And here it's probably just like, well, what's the point? You know what I mean? We hit like a place where it's good enough, and we don't need to know it's down there. So, you know.
Yeah, there isn't really a need to actually reach the bottom of the dungeon. They're just farming it for materials.
Yep. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. But again, the major factor here is Fel is even more ridiculous. We haven't seen what Dora-chan can do in a fight. Obviously, that they have the God of War's blessing now, so they're even stronger than they were initially. And then on top of that, the second they get in combat, their 50% bonus is going to be multiplied by the food buff, which we don't know what it does yet. If Wagyu beef was a 50% increase, I'd assume the dragon is at least that. You know what I mean? So we already saw like some of the more like mundane creatures like that Makoto was cooking for like that first adventurer group. You know, it was like a 5-10% increase on some of their stats, that kind of thing, or like a flat, like, you know, here's a plus 10 to agility, whatever. But we're talking about a dragon here, you know, not just the run of the mill, you know, stuff that everybody eats every day for the most part, or has the potential to. But because again, monster meat is rare and sought after, so I'm assuming the dragon buff is at least going to be 50%, which fell 100% stronger. Does he need it?
Yeah, I mean, once his stats are all approaching 10k baseline.
And those are some of the classic stat numbers, you know. Most of the time in game, stats cap out at 999. If you go a little bit farther, it's, you know, 9,999. And like overcap with like buffs and stuff. For like the base stat number. So I assume that the base stat cap in their world is probably 9,999. But yeah. Just saying. It's gonna probably be kind of crazy, and we'll probably have some adventurers losing their minds because they'll just be like, what was that, like, mysterious, you know, gray blur? And what was with that guy chasing the gray blur? And then the army of Suis that are probably going to be pew-pewing stuff. Whatever Dora's doing. It's going to be insane. It's going to cause rumors. It's going to be hilarious.
Yeah, we still haven't actually seen Dora fight, though his stats, he had like 3,000 magic.
Yeah. So
most of his other stats were relatively low, but he had like 3,000 magic and speed.
Yeah. So, you know, it's kind of like a specialty, you know, where Fel's like the all-rounder because he's that thing. It would make sense that Pixie Dragon doesn't have a ton of stamina or health or physical strength. You know what I mean? You think agility, magic caster, that kind of thing. That makes more sense.
Yeah, but also, like, by comparison, freaking Fel, with all his stats in like the 9,000s, is level like 900, whereas Dora is only like, what, 30?
Right.
And already has stats like in the 3,000s for his magic and speed.
Yeah. So, either way, there was definitely some crazy stuff in this episode, like that. This face right here has been going around a lot recently. And I might need to make a collage of this face because it's relevant. Belle and Makoto have made the resting unimpressed face collage. So far we got an Alphamy, Vox. I guess Velvet was doing it too last week. And then now they're there. So I might have to make a collage of this and just, you know, anytime there's something that warrants this, we'll just have Victoria throw it up because, man, do we need it.
There also needs to be a compilation at some point.
Yeah, compilation, what? So, yeah. They still got to sell the rest of the dragon stuff. It's going to be a lot of money. I say at least 15k, like I said in the reaction there. It's so much stuff. It's so much stuff. And just based on what... I might be underselling it massively at 15k. It might be closer to 30. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, once again, it was almost 4,000 just for one fang, half the liver, and two of the vials of blood.
Yeah.
We don't really know how much, what parts of that amounted to that.
Yeah.
But presumably the blood is probably not that super expensive comparatively. The liver was probably the big chunk of it, because the liver is supposed to basically be like a wonder drug.
And the fang was probably a reasonable amount, because it could probably be crafted into a pretty ridiculous weapon. Like he said, it's like a dragon fang blade for himself. Why he bought it. So one would assume a dragon fang blade is pretty high quality, depending on who crafts it.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, that's not talking about any of, the other meat they've got, which they're not selling because fell. But forgetting all of the leather, the other organs.
All of it. It's going to be madness. So, either way, another thing that we did get to see in this was they have, like, cold rooms regulated by magic. That's cool. You know what I mean? Makes sense for, that kind of stuff to exist for, like, preserving meats and stuff like that, because there has to be some way in this world, right? They're not just freshly, having the meat and just having it outside. You know what I mean? There has to be a way to, like, they said they have, like, the general cold rooms, which are, like, walk-in refrigerators, basically. But then this one is, like, a hyper-temperature regulated room for very specialized stuff.
This is a walk-in
magic
freezer. This is a walk-in freezer. Meanwhile, generally speaking, in medieval times, they had cold rooms, which were just literally basically just a pantry that was cut off from the elements in order to keep it cool.
So yeah, it is neat to see stuff like that, with the use of magic and stuff like that. Sui is becoming, sous chef over here. That's always fun to see what Sui is doing in the cooking department. Elrond died again. We mentioned that, but again, it's definitely a thing. How about Makoto remembering to do his offerings before he went into the dungeon? There's something. Good on him. He remembered. But why they're freaking out here is the God of War points out, well, this guy is not wearing armor. And that's something we talked a little bit about at the end of the reaction. There was Fel, as long as Fel's barrier is around, he doesn't really need to worry about anything, especially with the force multiplier of the God of War's blessing now. You know what I mean? So, I don't know.
Yeah. The biggest thing is just, once again, like, the barrier, will protect him from pretty much anything as long as Fel's right there. But, like, Fel's already brought up the whole thing of, like, you need to be able to at least defend yourself in the event something happens while I'm not there. Because, like, he does leave to go hunt, and he can't stay at the inn, and so on and so forth.
Right. Sorry. Massive sneeze. Yeah, I was holding it back. I couldn't hold it back anymore. But it will be interesting to see what Hephaestus' skill is, because, when you think like a God of the Forge, generally speaking, they're probably more defensive than offensive. So, and that's another thing that I guess is new, is a skill being granted, because so far it's just been blessings, which are like a passive thing. In this case, I'd assume it'll be like, he can summon like a shield around himself or something. You know what I mean? Something defensive. Maybe like a what's like that skill Ainz always uses to protect himself from melee. It's like body of opposing barrel or something like that. Like a big tank skill that's like, like stone skin or something. You know what I mean?
Well, no. Barrel is a reactive skill that is just like, he puts it up, and then as long as it's up with like a small cooldown, anytime someone would hit him, he immediately like phase shifts out of the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, he doesn't typically use like raw defense abilities, like just making himself tanky. He mostly just uses like elemental resistances and then barrel.
All right. So it will be interesting to see what Hephaestus' actual ability is, and because once again it's a skill, not a blessing that's just always on kind of situation. So he's taking it whether he likes it or not. I mean, it's a god. even if you say no, if they want you to have it, you're gonna have it. You know what I mean? It's like I don't think you understand. It must be painfully boring for these gods up here if Makoto is the most interesting guy on the planet at this point. To be fair, he's probably the most interesting otherworlder. The other three are very generic hero characters that they're probably like, oh look, it's more of them. Great. So somebody who has a skill like online grocery probably would be the most interesting person to follow around. So, yeah.
Yeah, which they potentially still are helping the other worlders as well. We haven't really got anything on them yet, but they clearly are. They're clearly playing favoritism towards Makoto just because he can give them offerings that they wouldn't otherwise be able to get.
Yeah. So, either way, he has had another thing forced on him. The little like ear call things are now more color coded and to their god. So there's that. But yeah, Makoto just can't catch a break. She's back. They did the second skit with her. That was hilarious. Gotta appreciate it. The attention to detail of her just I'll let it play for a second here. See, check it out. You see what she's doing right there? She just kept doing it, and then she even right there she started turning her head. It just got ridiculous. That's how you pass your driver's test, by the way. You don't check your mirror by just looking like that because the driver's teacher won't see you doing it. Here's a cheat for you guys that are if you have to pass your driver's test or whatever. When they want to see you looking in your rear view mirror, always tilt your head like she was. Because then they'll see the head motion, like, oh, I'm looking at the rearview mirror. That's how you beat the system. So, yeah, there's a random life hack for you guys. When you're doing the driver's test, if you have to, tell your kids, whatever it is, always make sure they turn their head to look. Even if you can see it just by, like, shifting your eyes, the instructor will not see your eye movement. They will see your head move, though. That was, like, the trick that I learned. Is like, yeah, I'm just gonna keep doing this even though I can see my rearview mirror just like out of the corner of my eye, no problem. But it's just like, no, I'm gonna shift my head so they see my head moving. Like, yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
So, anyway, definitely one hell of an interesting episode with all the stuff that we got to talk about for this one. And the dungeon is up next, so the madness will continue, and they're probably gonna come out with, if they don't beat it, they're going to come out with some other crazy creature that nobody's seen before, and Elrond's going to lose his mind. So, the hilarity will continue. And Makoto will become a millionaire. He'll be the first man ever to have 1 million gold. Probably. Maybe some of the nobles had millions of gold. So, maybe he'll be the first billionaire, and then we can bitch about him.
Well, I mean, from what we know, if he cashes out the dragon, he's probably about the freaking approaching the wealth of like a small nation.
Yeah. And who knows if he'll ever get any kickbacks from the mithril mine, because like we said, even if he gets like 3% of that, it's going to be massive.
Yeah, because once again, he's still waiting on that. He needs to go back to that other town to actually get paid out for selling the rights to it.
Yep. So, anyway, that being said, we've rambled on enough for this one, but there's a lot of interesting stuff to think about, or talk about in this one that we had to get to that was relevant to point out, because this show has all kinds of stuff going on that, for a show like this, you wouldn't think, but hey, it's doing it, and it's fun as hell. So, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, people of YouTube, beyond if you're watching, as always, we appreciate you stopping by and hanging out with us here in the dojo from our anime night in the dojo. And this was Campfire Cooking, Season 2, Episode 3. So, have a good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever it is for you. Have a good one. See you next time.
Hey everyone, Victoria here. If you enjoyed the video, please consider pushing those like and subscribe buttons. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thanks again for your time, and we hope to see you again in the future.